there. Welcome to my series analyzing every piece of music in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Today we're just about finishing up the Chapter 4 Queensblood tournament aboard the beautiful Shinra 8, and we are in for a very good time. Let's jump in. We've now beaten our round 2 opponent, and upon talking to the receptionist at the bar, we can begin our next round in our next fantastic track. While the preceding slew of Queensblood jazz tracks have all been of an exceedingly high quality, QB Tournament Round 3 immediately stands out as something special. It's another Shota Watanabe arrangement, using a very similar mix of alternating and harmonizing trumpet and saxophone, but it still feels quite different. For one, the rhythm section is absolutely driving the entire feel and mood of the track, much more so than in the previous arrangements. That highly groovy, syncopated riff right from the get-go is completely arresting. Rumor has it that it's impossible not to bop along to it. But the rhythm section isn't a one-trick pony either. As strong as that main groove is, it isn't afraid to experiment. Listen to the brief shift to more of a samba-style beat. The cymbals and double bass are doing some very heavy lifting to keep that groove so strong throughout. Impeccable. But there's another secret, or maybe not so secret, ingredient that helps elevate this track. While the previous Shota Watanabe jazz tracks have all prominently featured what I believe to be his own piano playing, this time he substituted his piano for a thick, heavy organ. It's fairly subtle in the opening minute of the track, mostly doubling and fattening the bass line's grooves, but eventually it branches out, adding a lot of texture and atmosphere to the track. Listen to it under the extended trumpet solo. Just so good. And then once the saxophone comes in, it reverts to the track's opening syncopated rhythm, and this time the organ really growls, very psychedelic and gnarly. If that wasn't enough, following the trumpet solo, then the sax solo, the organ gets its own glorious solo. This track is such a time capsule to a long-forgotten era of psychedelic rock. I love this comment on my last video, expecting bangers and getting instead some very cool jazz tracks. Buddy, sorry for the wait, but how about both in one? I'm once again not really picking up on any explicit references to the original Queensblood theme, so I'm guessing that Mitsuto Suzuki, this track's sole listed composer, is sitting on a demo track version of this piece somewhere. I wonder what, if anything, changed between the demo version and the final version in terms of instrumentation. I wouldn't be surprised if this is very close to how he imagined it, since there exists some precedent for this arrangement style in his own discography. Mitsuto Suzuki and Tsuyoshi Sekito's FF7 Remake Yuffie DLC track, The Runaround, specifically The Runaround Part 3, shares a lot of similarities with QB Tournament Round 3. That track has a groovy interplay between the organ and rhythm section, along with dueling trumpet and saxophone. They also share some pretty similar melodies. course, you could certainly talk about how that The Runaround Part 3 track is a very thinly veiled tribute, let's call it, to Yoko Kanno's track from Cowboy Bebop. But this video isn't about those tracks really. I'm mostly just pointing out that this is an orchestration style that Suzuki has some experience with. Overall, tremendous work. Well done. This is the last confirmed Shota Watanabe track on the Rebirth soundtrack, although I think the next one is his as well. We are back with our third of these more relaxed after-party tracks. Like the prior two, which we covered last episode, this one also follows the near exact same template established in the Round 1 after-party track. Like the Round 2 version, the intro is laced with several instruments just blasting little licks left, right, and center. Kind of a chaotic opening. It sounds like we're dealing with 3 lead woodwinds instead of 2. Oh, 3 leads because it's round 3. Yes, of course. Maybe. No. Still sounds great, but overall I find it a little less cogent than the previous 2 versions. This track is also a good example of something I've noticed in just about all of Watanabe's Queen's Blood tracks. Across each track, at occasional points, the drums seem to distort a bit. Either they were mic'd too loud, or whoever mixed the drums might have been a touch too harsh on the compression. I didn't bring it up in the last episode because it's quite minor, but occasionally there just seems like maybe a touch too much crunch on cymbals and toms. You can hear it in his preceding tracks as well. At first I thought it was a sound engineer applying too much compression, which can cause some of that crunching effect, but now I think the mics were just a little too hot when they recorded these tracks. These Watanabe arrangements are so great because they truly feel live, like you can feel the players playing off each other and communicating in a way that I do not feel in most video game soundtracks. But recording a live band can be a tough thing to do because you're miking up these different musicians all in the same room, so noise bleed between the mics is very possible. Especially for very loud instruments like, say, toms and cymbals, and especially when they're played with so much dynamism as we've heard. Like, think about how delicate the drummer's playing was during the second after-party track. That was pretty delicate. If they recorded all these tracks in relatively quick succession, they might not have had the foresight to tweak the mic's gain sensitivity enough in between the takes. Similarly, listen to the buzzing sound that accompanies the lead saxophone in the current track. That buzzing is the sound of the snare wires on the bottom side of the drummer's snare, which vibrate in time with the loud and mighty sound waves of the saxophone. The sax is so loud it's causing those little beads to resonate with the vibrations. That's not the kind of sound you want to pick up with your mic, but sometimes you can't eliminate that from a live recording. But again, these are minor nitpicks which I bring up because they are, at least to me, interesting to think about, not because they detract from the overall enjoyment of the piece. It's also fun to see these touches of humanity and error in these increasingly immaculate mixes. It's what's most lacking in that Round 1 after-party arrangement. In that track, the drum loops are consistently mixed throughout and have zero distortion, no bad bleed between the instruments, but it also sounds a bit soulless and sterile, at least to me. So yeah, give me these overly crunchy drums any day. It's the only way I can feel alive. Alright, we finally made it to the semi-finals. And while this sadly signals the end of Watanabe's amazing run of jazz tracks, we are still in for quite a treat. After what feels like an eternity, it is finally time for Junosuke Usui, the arranger of the original Queen's Blood track, the QBOG, to reclaim his throne. Although, wait a minute, where's the Queen's Blood motif? That's strange. I'm sure it'll show up eventually. Anyhow, right from the get-go, you can tell we are no longer in a Watanabe track. That crisp intro drum roll, the luscious big band mix of horns layering. We have left the snazzy jazz lounge and have entered a music hall with a much larger band. For pretty obvious reasons, it sonically sounds a lot like Usui's own track, Queen's Blood. These are certainly just about all the same musicians and recording session as back then in Chapter 2, although this time I don't hear any strings section. But yeah, wow, this is such a rich sound. Listen to that tumbling bass line in the beginning. So good. This track starts with a huge build-up. That QB motif will show up any minute now, I'm sure. You can feel something is coming. Listen to that fast as back and forth between the trumpet solo and saxophone. It's a similar format to Watanabe's duets, but the tempo is off the charts. It's like they're competing in a relay race or something. The track is just building and building. Where is this heading? Oh, here we go. Wait a minute, that's not Queen's Blood. And then you look at the liner notes for the track. Arranged by Usui, yes, but the composer isn't Mitsuto Suzuki. It was composed by Usui and Shotaro Shima? Oh, The 6 minutes big band arrangement of Chadley's theme? Are you kidding me? My boy is back! From here on out, the Chadley nods are more explicit. Really is perfect. Man, I know I say this about every Rebirth arranger, but Usui is just, he's so underrated. It's just so fast and constantly moving. He throws so many ideas at you. Listen to him repeat one of Chadley's leitmotifs, immediately cancel out of it as if he was pulling off a fighting game combo, before quickly tossing in a reference to the Final Fantasy main theme? I think this is up there with Shima's subterranean grind as some of the most high-octane and virtuosic moments in the entire game. It's just such a fun contrast from the cool and relaxed style of Watanabe's tracks. I also greatly appreciate the many solos that fill up the back half of the piece. We've got a big drum solo. The following piano solo sounds great too. Not altogether different from Watanabe's style. Heck, it very well could be Watanabe playing. Followed by, what is that, an alto sax? Soprano sax? Giving us a dazzling solo that brings us back to our loop point. Friggin' wow, man. That's it. Cloud has made it to the final round of the Queen's Blood tournament. It's time to ascend the stairs to face your final challenger. As you begin your approach, our next track starts up. We open on a fast, emotionally charged arpeggiating piano. It's accompanied by aleatoric, reverb-drenched violin plucks, foreshadowing some of the track's development. Interestingly, for the OST version, after the 8th bar intro, the percussion and big strings come in, but in-game, they loop bar 5 to 8 once more before moving to the second section. Unfortunately, this extra loop seemed to have been made pretty last minute, possibly after it had been passed on from the original arranger, because the point where it loops back to the bar 5 has a pretty obvious break in the instruments. Once again, not a big deal, but interesting to think about the design decision here. Maybe they wanted this more mysterious, subdued section of the music to last you a bit longer as you wonder who your final opponent could be. Maybe that 8-bar intro just wasn't long enough in playtests. Although realistically, I think they probably had bigger fish to fry during playtest sections than massaging music cues. Anyhow, one way or another, the track picks up with, I think, virtual strings doubling the piano's arpeggio progression. Whether or not these are virtual isn't too important because they're far from the star of this piece. Much more important is Ascamaret's immediately recognizable violin. I touched on Ascamaret's highly distinctive, exceptionally expressive playing in the past, but this is her proper debut in Rebirth, and it's really something. Ascamaret is a frequent collaborator of Mitsuto Suzuki. If you've listened to Remake, or even more so Final Fantasy XIII-2 and Lightning Returns, you're definitely familiar with her style. It's so distinctive that I'm just going on a limb that it's her because, come on, just listen to it. It's gotta be her. Wow. It takes what would be a dramatically appropriate build-up track that, if I'm being honest, doesn't really go anywhere, and elevates it into this very magical thing. This is a Mitsuto Suzuki and Kengo Tokusashi joint. My guess is Suzuki worked on Ascamaret's sections, while Tokusashi did everything else. Although Suzuki is the sole credited composer, so I could be underselling his involvement. Also, for another track with the words Queen's Blood in it, it once again seems to lack any QB leitmotifs, right? Anyway, this is quite an exciting, dramatic pump-up track and wonderfully captures the tension of the final battle against Regina. Upon winning the match, we get a brief new variation of the FF7 victory fanfare. Yeah, that sounds good. Too bad it fades out after 15 seconds or so. Would have been fun to hear it play out a touch more. What's that? Deep in the PC version's audio files, there exists a 2.5-minute version of this track. And it's chock full of progressively more interesting music segments. And there's a massive salsa breakdown in the middle of it. What? Yeah, what starts as an already very sumptuous arrangement really goes places. From a mood and instrumentation standpoint, this sounds a lot like the semi-finals Chadley piece from earlier, so I'm assuming Jinosuke Usui made this arrangement as well. Wow, it's really something. For me, this is easily the greatest rendition of the FF7 fanfare, outside of the original, of course. But the fact that it fades out before it really gets going is, well, I don't know, there's a rebirth metaphor in there somewhere. Not just that, the reason it needs to fade out so soon is because it needs to quickly make room for another god-tier rebirth track that plays right after. But I have so much to say about that next track, so we're just going to have to save it for the next episode. Thank you for the comments in the last episode submitting your picks for the best song of Chapter 3. I've received a lot of great replies. For this episode here, I now want your pick for best piece of music from Chapter 2. Yeah, that was Calm and the Grasslands region. If you need a refresher, you can review my episodes 6 through 10. Personally, my pick for Chapter 2 is probably the easiest one I'll have to make in the entire game, but I'm looking forward to hearing about yours. Also, speaking of the last episode, because of my inclusion of a few Shota Watanabe and Miki Hirose non-rebirth songs, it got flagged by the copyright holder. I've disputed the claim, but I'm yet to hear back. There's a very strong chance I won't make a penny off that one. This is one of the primary risks when it comes to making music analysis videos on YouTube, so I'm extremely grateful to the folks over at my Patreon, and also the individual super thanks donations, who are 100% keeping this series alive. If it wasn't for them, it would be extremely hard to justify making these videos. Thank you so much. So if you like the idea of keeping this series going strong, and or having your name in the credits, and or having access to my in-development spreadsheets, then I encourage you to support me. Okay, 2 episodes remain in Chapter 5, and both have some rebirth all-timers in there. You know the ones I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm very excited. See you soon. Take care. Bye.